Hi, this is Dean in North Carolina.
And this is Emily in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
And I'm sorry, I was supposed to talk. And this is Coast-2-Coast, episode 15.
we're rusty, and that's okay.
I haven't done this in a while.
It's been 6 months since we did a podcast. It took a pandemic to get us to do it again.
Yeah, a lot has changed since we were doing one of these last.
Certainly has.
Yeah.
We've both been pretty busy, which I would say is an understatement on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I've basically been cooped up at home for 2 weeks now because my office went work from home a week ago, but I got sick before that, so I was self-quarantining. I don't know if I had caught COVID, but I got really, really sick. So I was self-quarantined anyway. So I've been at home for 2 weeks, and I really haven't gone anywhere besides like visiting my parents a couple times. So yeah, I've had nothing else to do besides some work from home stuff and work on projects here. It's the only thing I can really do to like keep from going stir crazy is work on stuff.
That's pretty much what I did when I got unemployed in 2008. Like for the first time in my life where it was just like, there is no job to go run to. What am I going to do? Unemployment. And it was just bored out of my mind. And about week 2 is when I got back into doing electronics again for the first time in like 25 years. I just one day went, I know, I'll just tear some shit apart and see if I remember how to build shit. And that was it. That started it again. So yeah, it was like a little kind of saving grace in a way. It kept me from going nuts, like worrying about where the job's going to come from, et cetera. At least I was doing a thing, you know?
It's crazy how much you can get done when you have nothing else to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, just suddenly it's like, wow, I have so much time to do stuff now that I'm not sitting in an office for 9 hours a day. And then the flip side is that like, I want to do things, but some of them I can't do because I can't go anywhere. Like, it's like, oh, I have all this free time now. One of the things I like decided I wanted to do is take piano lessons because I wanted to learn how to play the piano for years.
That's
but
cool.
Like, yeah, but it's like, well, I can't go to a piano teacher now. So, well, what else am I going to do? I guess I'll get out the lathe and do some wood turning instead.
Yeah, some really nice stuff too. Let's see, two or three things maybe in the last few months that I think I've seen you make. Is that right?
2 things. So I did a little live stream over the weekend. I figured like I got nothing else to do. Let me do a live stream of some wood turning, and I made this little guy. It's a little segmented vase thing. It's little. It's like, well, here's next to a beer bottle for size.
I love it.
It's just a cute little thing. I wanted to get some practice doing segmented wood turning, and so I kind of made this. I didn't really have a plan for it exactly. I just kind of put it together. And this was just specifically done for the sake of wood turning only. I didn't really have any other goal with it. And the other thing that I've done with wood turning is this guy, which is a synthesizer project that I've been working on for a couple months now.
An amazing one, I might add. Great.
Yeah, so this is just a big like orb that I made out of poplar and cherry, and it houses a little synthesizer inside of there. And I don't know, I'll show it. I'll show it playing like in a little bit when we get more onto our projects. But yeah, that's my other wood turning thing. And I've got a lot more wood out in the garage, and I've got a lathe and tools, so I'll probably do some more.
What are you gluing the laminates together with? I'm curious. Epoxy or just regular?
Just
glue.
Tight bond, regular wood glue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it holds super well.
Yeah.
The trick is that you have to just get everything like you have to get your tolerances close, and like this one actually came out really good because like I improved my technique some. There's like 2 things you have to get right when you do this. Is one is that you cut all these segments and they have to add up to 360 degrees when you put them all together, and that means like if you have 10 pieces, each the angle from like side to side, because think of them like pieces of a pie sort of.
The perfect 45s, right?
Yeah, like if you have 8, they have to be 45, or 45.
Yeah.
If you have 10, they have to be 36. And if you're even off by like, if you're off by half a degree, which is easy to get off using like a chop saw, when you go all the way around, like times 10, like half a degree times 10 is what? 5 degrees.
Yeah, you get a
Yeah,
big gap.
yeah. And then you have a big gap. And so like, it's a real pain in the butt to get that right. Um, and there's ways of getting around that. One thing you can do is like, you make your circle, but then you make it in two halves. Like you don't glue the two halves together. You glue in, so you have two like U-shaped pieces. And then like these faces here and here won't be flat like they're supposed to. They'll be like this or like this. And then you just take it and put it against a disc sander, and then you flatten each of them, and then you can assemble them into a circle. Well, it'll be like a little bit oval, but that doesn't matter because you're going to turn it on the wood lathe anyway.
Right.
But you also have to get your horizontal lines really flat. And that's hard because you're gluing all these segments together, 8 pieces or 10 pieces. They don't all go perfectly flat. You glue them up and they're like shifted slightly. And if you try to just stack them like that, you're going to end up with all these gaps. So you have to find a way to flatten. Once you have these circles, you have to flatten them on each side. And a lot of people use a thickness planer for that. I don't have a thickness planer. My dad does, and I can use his, but it's kind of a, I mean, then I have to drive to my parents' house, and that's already like a thing. And then like, I love my dad, but like dealing with my dad is a whole other thing, you know? Like, when I went over there, like I was doing this because I needed it for this one, and I haven't figured out a technique for doing it without a thickness planer yet. And like, I was putting all of the discs, all the little circle pucks through, and one of them, I was getting like a little bit of snipe. So snipe, for people that aren't familiar, snipe is when you're using a power tool and like the blades cut a little bit more in one spot than another one. So like on a jointer, you're running a piece through the jointer, and a lot of times you'll get like at the very tail end, it'll cut a little bit deeper than on the rest of it. Or with a table saw, as you're pushing a piece through the table saw, it'll cut straight all the way till the end, and it'll kind of nick the corner. Well, the same thing happens with a planer. And like I ran one of those pucks through, and it kept putting a tiny, tiny little bit of snipe, like very minimal. Like, and I was like, well, you know, so it goes. Like, I'll deal with it. And my dad was like, oh, no, no, no. Like, and I was like, Dad, it's fine. I don't think I'm going to be able to deal with that. It's fine. And he's like, no, no, no. You just have to put it through like this. And he like shoves it through, and it gouges out like 1/8 of an inch out of the piece.
Oh, God.
And he looked at it, and he just shrugged, and he handed it to me and went back in the house. Like,
classic.
Yeah.
That's just so good. I love the shrug part. Well, there you go. Piece of shit.
1/8 of an inch doesn't sound like much, right? Like, not really, but then like when you're using a thickness planer, you're taking off like a 64th of an inch or like a 128th of an inch at a time.
Yeah.
And so I had to run that stupid thing through there like a good 20 more times to get rid of that giant gouge he put in there. And like, he was mad because he was like, he wanted to go eat dinner, and like my mom was waiting for us to stop messing around in the garage so we would eat dinner. And like, so he just went inside, and I'm outside just like planing and planing and planing. And then he comes out and was like, are you almost done? I want to eat. And I'm like, no, I'm not almost done, Dad. Like, I'm fixing this giant gouge that you made in my piece. Like, it's going to take a while. So, yeah.
Oh, man.
I'm going to see, you know, I want to see if I can get around using the thickness planer. And I bought a disc sander from Harbor Freight. Like the last day before quarantine started, I was like, oh God, what if I need this tool and I'm not allowed to go outside? I better go to Harbor Freight and buy it right now. And so I like ran out to Harbor Freight and I bought their disc sander, which is a pretty nice disc sander for what you get. I think it's like $170, but like, don't think you're going to be able to use that 20% coupon that they're always sending you. Cause like,
no, not always.
Right. And like fine print is like, basically you're not allowed to use this on any power tools. So, but any case, I bought it, and I was trying to like practice with it and see if I can like put those pucks up against the like disc and sand them flat. They weren't sanding that flat, and I want to see if I swap out for a less aggressive grit of sandpaper. If I can get
you might have a little better control as you rotate it around.
Yeah, because like the discs that it comes with are 60 grit, which is very aggressive. So it just starts immediately just tearing wood off of there. And it's just, you can practically watch your piece shrink as you hold it on there. But if
Right.
you
Quick.
even
If you got 80 grit.
yeah, if you tilt your piece even slightly while it's pressed against that disc, it'll just like it'll change the plane it's sanding at, and now you instead of being flat, it's like this.
Yep.
And for it and see what I can do.
Do you have a belt sander
I
at
do have a
all?
belt sander.
A handheld like 4-inch belt sander, you can do some really neat stuff with. You turn it on, lock the thing down, clamp it to a surface with the thing up, and
Yeah,
you got a lot of control of just holding your hands like this and just holding a piece and working it real lightly. I've done that plenty with the one I have.
I do have one, and I've used that like that sometimes. The problem with the doing the segmented pieces is that like if you look at your belt, like there's only so much of it that's flat,
Yeah,
right?
you're gonna have to just constantly keep rotating it. Yeah.
Right. And
It's
like
tricky.
that turned out like I tried that on a piece, and it turned out to be really really difficult to like. You can get it flattish, but getting it flat like I had the hardest time with that. So
You know,
unless
the tool you really need is a drum sander. The big, that's like 2 drums like this, and you can
yeah,
adjust between the 2 of them. They have big belts. And I use some to take some 1/2-inch Purple Heart and turn it into 1/4-inch Purple Heart, sand it away 1/4 inch.
yeah,
But it's awesome because you have such finite control on it, and big any shape piece will go through and come out perfect. But I don't even know anybody has one. That was at a woodworking shop I went to once in Hawaii.
yeah. I would really like to just have a thickness planer, but I don't have space for one.
Yeah.
I could buy one, but I just don't have room for bringing stuff in my garage anymore. I'm going to start doing resin casting projects pretty soon. And like, I'm going to need a pressure pot. I already have an air compressor, so I'm fine with that, but I need the pressure pot. I need the resin. I need the mold release. I need containers to like mix the silicone in.
It's a lot of space just to do
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. And it's like, especially the pressure pot, because it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I got too much crap out there, and like bringing a thickness planer in there too is like, oh geez, where would I put it? As much as I want one.
It kind of gets to a safety issue too. You got too much stuff clutter. It's easy to get hurt running some piece of equipment. You trip over something, it's just.
I trip over things every time I go in the garage. If I'm not like tripping over something, I'm knocking something over while I'm working. Like I'm sawing something on the table saw, and suddenly like I'm knocking something off a shelf, and I'm like, all right, just ignore whatever's falling. Don't turn. Yeah.
Well, Lisa and I have pretty much outgrown a garage and this workshop right here. I mean, you just look around behind me. Look at all the shit on these shelves and stuff. And there's
Yeah.
not much floor space to walk around, So, but it's, it's all right. We're moving. We're going to be putting the house on the market probably after April now. We're going to do it in April, but I guess not. It's going to be a while.
Yeah.
But it's ready to sell. Get it on the market and then go shopping for some place with more space where we can have more stuff and fill up that space.
I'm really hoping that if anything, that this pandemic calms down the LA housing market, because I want to buy a house.
Yeah.
So much of the housing market out here is bought up by like real estate investors, either people that like are holding on to homes and leaving them empty because they want to resell them later, or people that are buying up like 6 or 7 homes and then using them as Airbnbs. And I've been seeing a lot of like chatter online from like Airbnb host groups of them freaking out because no one is Airbnb-ing their houses anymore. And they're like, I missed out on $12,000 of income this month. And it's like, I don't feel bad for you. If you're making $12,000 a month,
Sorry.
like you're making a lot of money, and like those are homes people could be living in instead of you just making money off them. And I'm really hoping that some people are going to get like freaked out and like dump some of their properties, and maybe then I can buy a home and like have my own house and my own garage where I can like really set things up the way I want for the shop. We'll see.
In Portland. You'd love the Pacific Northwest, I think. You like the rain and stuff, and there's enough sunshine in the summertime. The winters are dreary and all that, but I bet you'd dig it up there. I liked it. I lived there for a short time.
I really do. And one weird thing is that during all this pandemic stuff is that the weather here in LA has been kind of bizarre. We missed our winter here. We didn't have winter this year. But suddenly like March has become winter, and it has, like, for the first week and a half of like me being sick, it was pouring like nonstop. And
God, how
like
depressing.
weird weather. Like it's gonna be raining again tomorrow. And it just made it feel even more like the end of the world because it's just like raining every day, day after day after day after day. And we don't have that in LA.
Yeah,
Um,
and being sick.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's kind of nice because like you're sick and then you can be cozy, like as cozy as you can, like under your blankets on the couch. But just very weird. But yeah, I love cold weather. I love rainy weather. I would love Portland.
yeah,
Um,
it's
it's a
cool.
little bit gentrified for my tastes these days, but
Yeah.
maybe it'll get ungentrified a little bit.
Well, there's some tech there, you know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
You know, it's the dream of the 90s, I hear, is alive in Portland. And there's a really cool lesbian bookstore there, too. Oh, that show. That's
Yeah.
pretty good. So I've been all over the place in the last few months. I got into weaving like crazy, which was cool. I've always wanted to, and I grew up around.
I loved
Like,
your loom videos. They were so good.
yeah, I've still got to jump back on the carpet loom now and start making a carpet and doing a video of that. Yeah, I made like, I don't know, I've made 3, I think, in the last couple of months, like a 3D printed one, another one that I learned from and kind of set aside, and then built another one. And I already, after that one, saw some things I could do better on the next one. So now I want to build another one. It's like building them is cool. It's woodworking too, which is nice. That's a little something getting back to a thing I love. I haven't done for quite a while. It's just
I was I
garage.
was really tempted to 3D print one of those ones that you 3D printed because it looked neat.
My mistake was not printing it with enough infill. The parts are brittle
Okay.
and they do get under some stress.
Yeah. I was thinking like, oh, well, I can print PETG now, so maybe now's the time to try this. But it's turned out, I've spent almost 3 months messing around with printing PETG, and like, I hate PETG. I hate it. Like,
In the ass. It's nice when it's done. It's a nice material. I like, excuse me while I make weird noises on the mic. It's a nice material, but the stringy thing, you got to get the temperature. Everything's got to balance just right. Once you get it, it's good, but it also equals dead slow printing.
you have to print slow, and honestly, like every other filament I've ever tried, like I've been able to finagle my way into like printing it well in like maybe a couple days. But like I have spent months on PETG, and if it's not something weird like having to print the first layer extremely slowly so that the extruder isn't like slipping, then it's like for some reason it'll print like 7 layers fine, and then like layer number 8 will decide it doesn't want to adhere to layer number 7.
Holy
And then
shit.
like it'll go back to printing the rest, and then so you have like a beautiful print where it's just like separated in the middle.
Yeah.
Or like it'll get to one of those blobs. Like I don't care about the stringing so much because I can clean that up, but like how it collects on the nozzle.
Yes.
And then you get like a half burnt blob that just is there, and then you try to clean them off, but then you're like, all right, I've babied this print enough, I need to go make dinner. And then you come back and there's a giant blob that fell into your print midway through, and then like the print head just goes over it every time, and then like that whole part of the part is distorted, and like I just had it. Absolutely had it with that stuff. So
what you're saying is PETG is basically the snotty-nosed 5-year-old that won't do what you tell it to.
right. It's like
yeah, it's nasty.
it's like having a gifted and talented child. Like a really smart, you have like a really smart kid who like they can do really well in school if like they want to, but most of the time like they are being a brat and not paying attention and like being rude to the teacher, and like you just can't get them to behave. That's PETG,
Yeah, the consistency is
a little bad.
I've had some prints I did the reinforcements for my Z-axis, and they came out great. They looked beautiful. And then there was some other times I was printing with it, and it was like it just would not cooperate. Tried everything. It was just stringing all the time, and I was getting those gaps you were talking about. And then you get the notorious, like you said, the blob that just decides to hang out in the middle of your print somewhere and just screw it up.
Yeah.
So yeah, when it works, it's nice, but it doesn't always.
Right. I think I'm just done with it unless I get another 3D printer. Because like some printers, it seems like you can print it just fine. But not my
Difference
printer.
too between the Bowden tube versus the feed gear style print head, because mine's a Bowden tube. So I don't know if that's any. I don't know what the difference would be. I haven't tried it on the other printer.
I mean, mine's direct drive, and it doesn't seem to have any problems like pushing the filament through. It just, I don't know. My printer just, one, it can't quite get the print head like it gets it to the temperature range, but it's on the low end of the temperature range, and that's as hot as it can go. And there's just nothing I can do about it. Like I've upgraded the hot end. I've changed it from hot end, like a PTFE liner. It's an all metal hot end now. I put a new heater cartridge in it. Like I changed the fan. I did all kinds of stuff, and like it just does not quite get there. So I just, you know.
What's the MOSFET driving it? Is it a real high current MOSFET that's in the circuit board driving the heat to it, driving the voltage to the heater?
No, it's just driven by the driver board.
Yeah.
But they make those MOSFET breakout boards, but those are for the heater bed. And I have one of those, but I haven't put it in yet. But I haven't had any problems with the heated bed yet. It's the frickin' hot end does not want to behave quite well when I need to get it up to 250 degrees. So.
That's one thing I like about the CR10S. I've pushed it to like 255 a couple times on something.
Yeah.
And it just goes there. It doesn't hesitate. It just cranks on up. Yeah. So I guess ABS has been my favorite for just about everything. I've got it down to where it doesn't warp anymore. I got a good setup where I don't get warpage. I just try to orient the parts in a way where you got, the least chance of that, for one.
Yeah.
But that's my workhorse, ABS.
I do like ABS. A lot of people hate ABS. I've had generally good results with it. Occasionally, when I've tried to print really big things that have square corners, then I end up with all kinds of warping issues. But generally speaking, like I've had quite good luck with ABS, and so like I'm fine with it. Like it works pretty well for me. I mostly print in PLA just because it's cheap, and I have like 10 rolls of it. And honestly, like for my last project, the synthesizer, I had been trying to print some brackets to go inside of it in PETG, and they weren't working. And I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to try PLA. And like instantly it printed so good. It's like,
yeah, it is.
Why did I spend 3 days trying to print these in PETG and like just getting so frustrated? Like they printed so nicely in PLA. And it's like, ugh.
Oy vey. I did a little work on Soppy. I actually went down a rabbit hole on Soppy. I got Soppy fairly together as far as the chassis goes. It was hanging out. He's little.
It's little.
Yeah, it's tiny Soppy.
Yeah.
Like 66.6%. So he's Soppy 666 satanic. And the colors tell you that's Satan right there, black and red. I mean, come on. So in scaling that down, here's what I didn't think about is the servos, because I'm just thinking, servos, whatever. No, there's the digital servos. There's the serial servos, the ones that go in a daisy chain and you address each one and you can talk to them really fast and make them do multiple stuff all at once. It's really cool. Yeah. But you need to be able to talk to them. And the ones that Roger used, I could get those. It cost me like almost $200, a little over $200 to get all of them.
Yeah.
And the little board that runs them and all that, but they don't fit. I thought I could squeeze them in. That's like I'm just missing by a few millimeters of being able to use them in the wheels. And then I bought these other ones. I can't talk to them. I've tried everything. I've gotten help from Roger, some other people on GitHub and stuff. And I even put together a computer with Linux so that I could do it through, the whole Python thing and everything else. So I have a whole Linux machine sitting over here that I've actually learned, those things in the terminal pretty well to where I didn't have to think about it anymore. Because okay, just do this. And, so that was kind of fun getting back into a Linux machine again for the first time in a long time, but I have no luck. So I got to figure out a solution. Maybe sooner or later, some other companies will come up with some micro versions of, but I can get them. They're out of China, but you can't talk to them. There's no protocol available to talk to them. Now, somebody like Roger could sit down long enough and figure it out based on an existing one.
Sure.
And there is a data sheet that probably is going to be close to the same, but so I stopped at that point. That project's a shelved one. You don't have any of those, do you?
No. Servo, and it's one of those like cheap little blue hobby servos that I don't know if you saw my stupid video that I put up the other day with the Mercury switch.
I loved that. It's like a Rube Goldberg thing. It was great. It's like, but it's a Mercury switch. I could have done it with an Arduino. Shut up, I did.
Yeah. So that was so my friend Lee, they have been during quarantine. They've been doing unusual switches, like just throwing together switches. Like they made some little like things, like some little, I think it was little pieces of copper they taped to their lips and then like wired. And so when they open,
I saw that post. Yeah.
Light on and off. And they made like a Chef Boyardee can switch that like if you move a can, then it turns on. And it was like putting a spoon in a sink and like putting a spoon in a bowl of Cheerios. And I was just like, man, I love this stupid, like making switches out of stupid things.
It's great.
And I decided, I got a bunch of Mercury switches. And so people that didn't see it, I hot glued a Mercury switch to a little hobby servo and then hooked that to a 9-volt battery to an LED. And then I had an Arduino powering the servo. And so the servo just tilts like this. And so it just like tilts the Mercury switch. So it just like turns the switch on and off, which turns the LED on and off. But that is literally the only servo I have is that dumb little hobby servo that's glued to a Mercury switch right now.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of switches, look at this thing I picked up in a junk store. How's that for a cool old wall switch?
Is that all Bakelite?
It's ceramic.
Oh, wow.
It's totally wired safely. Nothing could ever happen wrong with that.
Yeah.
Until you pull it out of the wall and it's live and you grab it inadvertently.
Right. But man, that is gorgeous.
Badass switch. That's going in the new shop somewhere. It's just got a nice click to it. So and that'll outlast all of us. It's a cool switch. I like it. It's got a nice click.
Yeah. Speaking of Mercury, did you see that one of the Mercury switches broke open the other day?
Yes. Yeah, and it was pretty cool that you were able to seal it up in an ampule. Did you heat the glass yourself and do that?
I did, yeah.
That's cool.
I didn't even realize it happened. Like I was doing my work from home, and so I was sitting at my dining table, which I don't dine at. It's like project table, and I was sitting there working on something, and I looked over and I saw this little like shiny silver button, and I was like, I don't remember that. But like a friend had sent me like a big grab bag of stuff last week, like all kinds of junk that he didn't need. There was a whole bunch of like Arduino modules and speakers and other stuff. And so I thought like, oh, this is something that was in that box because I had emptied the whole box out onto the table. And there's this really shiny button sitting there. And I'm like, what is that? And I go to grab it and it squishes and quivers everywhere because it was liquid mercury. The switch had like cracked the glass a little bit and it just like seeped out. And I was like, oh man, like what am I going to do with this? Like, I mean, this is kind of cool. I was pushing it around with a stick, but I was like, I got to do something with this mercury. And all the hazardous waste disposal sites are closed right now because like everything that's not emergency is shut down.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh God, I don't want to have this just sitting in my house for like 2 months. And so I had taken a neon sign class last year, and part of the class, like we practice on the clear tubing you make neon signs out of. And then at the end, they were told us like, you can just take all the stuff you bent home, even the stuff that's not a neon sign. And so I had like these bent up tubes lying around. So I took one and I got my MAP gas torch and I like heated it and then like pulled it. So it like, it shrinks as you pull it, and then like twisted it and then like melted one end. So I had like one end of the tube closed. And I was like, oh, now I just need to push the mercury in there. So I like start getting the mercury onto a paper sheet so I could like funnel it in there. But it just like mercury rolls so fast, which is I
Yeah.
guess quicksilver. It just
Cohesive.
rolled to the other side of the paper and just rolled right off the table and fell like 3 feet onto the floor and went.
Fuck.
Into
That's
like
the worst. I was gonna say, don't let it fall on the floor when you were talking earlier, because it just goes into like 900 million pieces
oh
now.
my God, there were so many little freaking drops, and I like didn't want to leave them. So I sat there like on my hands and knees with my flashlight shining it, because like you can't see those little drops easily, but like if you shine a bright light, they're shiny
Yeah,
metal.
they
They make
show
like
up.
sparkle. So I just like got close and like used a sheet of paper like a squeegee and like pushed all those little stupid drops until I got a blob, and then I like used the paper to roll the blob around in like bigger and bigger circles, vacuuming up all those other stupid drops.
Damn.
Yeah, it was like 20 minutes of like rolling all those little balls back together. And I'm sure I missed some small ones that are in my kitchen somewhere now. But I got almost all of it, and I put it in the tube. So I had a long tube, and it sat at the bottom.
Record again. Okay.
I think I was talking about mercury. I don't know what
What was that? You were scooping up all the mercury. So
All right.
you finally got it all back into one little cohesive.
Yeah, I got it in one little cohesive blob, and I poured it in my glass tube, and I had to heat the other end, and I wanted to make sure that the mercury didn't get hot while I was melting the glass, because you don't want to breathe mercury vapors, because those are bad.
Yeah.
The mercury when it's a liquid is not that bad, but if it turns into a vapor, then you're in trouble. And so I had to hold the bottom end of the tube where the mercury was to make sure that it wasn't getting hot while I was melting the top end of it. Fortunately, glass is not like a really good conductor of heat, so I was able to melt the top end while the bottom end stayed cool, and then I pulled the top end like I had done previously and sealed it up, and now I have a little vial like this, and it's got a ball of mercury that rolls around in there. I don't super trust it.
Don't drop that one.
Yeah, so when I'm going to order this resin stuff for a different project, and when I do that, I'm probably going to cast the whole thing in a block of crystal clear resin, because
that's cool.
it'll protect it so it won't crack, if I drop it, or if it gets bumped or whatever.
You can play with it safely after that.
Yeah, I have a little fidget thing to like go bloop, 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 because like if you've never played with mercury in like a glass vial, it's liquid, but it's heavy, and so it slides from one end to the other, and it really like thunks.
You can feel it. Yeah, it carries a lot of inertia.
It does.
Yeah.
So it's fun to tip it back.
I remember the first time I picked up a tiny little bottle of it in probably junior high school in science class, and you pick it up like it's like a bottle of aspirin. Like, whoa, this is heavy. That was neat stuff. So the that show, I think I mentioned, I don't know if I didn't mention the podcast, Lisa and I, I've told Emily about it, but for listeners, Lisa and I had a show coming up at the local community college's library in their gallery of all of the crazy stuff we like to make and sculptures we do under like the whole recycled Renaissance moniker. And let me pull up a screen share real quick here. There's a couple of some crazy stuff that we did that was going to be in the show. It's all metal sculptures.
Oh, those are cool.
Yeah, this is like this hanging bird thing that's hanging from this big piece of metal that is actually a hunk of strap down material that gets used on the chicken trucks that pass through the county. Ones that grow up in the tiny little cages. And so this is like my homage to the chickens. It's mounted on a brake rotor. This is like a rocket made from hand saws, an old fire extinguisher, some tubing that was going to be a motorcycle exhaust, and a soup strainer. This is just miscellaneous crap alien guy. I built that last weekend.
Fun.
Just fun stuff. You can take tools and turn them into other things. That's one of my favorites.
I love this stuff.
And then, yeah, it's just fun stuff. You start putting it together. I made a menorah this year for Hanukkah last year. Lisa had the idea one day. And silverware. This is what your silverware does after hours. It carries wine bottles around for you and looks for cheese. And of course, Audio Man is going to be in there.
Yeah.
Can't have him. And then lamps out of blenders. We do all these crazy lamps out of blenders. This has got one of those flicker lamps in it. The ones that looks like a flame. So it looks like the blender's on, moving stuff around. Gumball lamp. That's an old hair dryer.
That one is super cool. I would just it's actually like
Just stick a light in it and you're done.
it's kind of elegant. Like I would put that as furniture in my house, honestly.
Yeah, that's cool. It's probably from the 60s. And then that's Lisa's tapestry that she did. First one
Wow,
she did. Pretty
that's
cool.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, she was inspired by a picture of the longleaf forest around here that our friend Brady Beck took. And Lisa did these and these. She's getting like really creative with the button necklaces.
That's so pretty. I love that.
That's cool. And the whack-a-mouse toy. That'll be in there. Lisa did this. She came up with this idea just an epiphany one day. We saw it and sitting in a pile of stuff we have, and she goes, "Oh, I know what I'm going to do with this," and ran in the house. And like 5 hours later, there was this thing, a nice big heart.
That's awesome.
Coat hanger for golfers, and some of Lisa's fish. Got this whole thing, a couple of scarves that she's made. Oh my God, these scarves are so cozy because all the fuzzies around the edge. They're made of just single pieces of yarn on the warp. So you got all this nice fuzzy stuff hanging out of the side. She ties them all off.
That's so good.
And the selfie tower, the TV turned into this.
Yeah.
I did that like, what was that, last weekend? A couple weekends ago. Just in one day, I just built the frame and everything and just took all kinds of old junk and started screwing it to the sides. And that's got parts off there. From my old oscilloscope is in there, some radios. I like how the circuit board's backlight.
Yes.
A la the one you have hanging up.
Yes. I should bring that thing home. It's just sitting in my office and it would look good here.
So yeah, anyway, that's a run through of the stuff we were going to have, but they rescheduled it for next April. So
yeah, that's about.
But at least we're still on the list.
Right.
I'll show you some stuff real quick. This stuff I found. Lisa had this thing she read about making a lamp out of old CDs. So you stack them up, you glue them all together. You put a light up inside them, and of course it lights out through here. Well, yeah. I found this stuff on Amazon pretty cheap, like a 3-foot piece of it, about a meter of it is like maybe $16.
Very nice.
And it's amazingly bright, super freaking bright.
Yeah.
And you can just cut it off anywhere you want and use it.
Yeah.
So keep that stuff in mind. It comes in colors too. It's pretty neat shit.
Have you seen that like faux LED strip? Or I'm sorry, not the faux LED strip, the faux neon that is an LED strip. Have you seen that stuff?
That looks like neon?
Yeah.
Some of them, yeah. I mean, I bought some that aren't very bright at all. I've yet to be impressed with it. I'm sure there's some that are bright, but the one I had sucked. I just let it in the trash. It was junk.
Yeah, my friend Sean has some, and it's very nice and bright. I've been meaning to buy some and play around with it, but I have so many other things to play around with that I have not done it yet.
Right.
And let me turn some lights on. It's the sun has gone down, so it's gotten a little dark in here. All right. Okay. Oh, that's a little better. What is that?
It's my Sheldon USB stick. But he kind of sucks because he doesn't fit in everything.
Yeah.
You can't put him in the back of a computer between two USB cables. It just doesn't work. Lisa gave me this a few years ago, and I needed a USB drive tonight. I couldn't find one. I went, oh, Sheldon's here on the desk. It's freaking goofy.
I don't know what else I've been up to. Oh, you know what I've been up to is I'll show you. I ran out of room for my projects because I live in 500 square feet, and most of my projects ended up at work on my desk. But a couple weeks ago, well, probably like a month ago, I decided to build some shelves in my house here, and I'm going to give you a little quick tour. You have to tell me. I'm going to tilt my camera. We're going to go up, 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 up. Tell me when you can see them.
Right there.
Yeah.
That's
So I put
cool.
nice shelves on like that track shelving,
Yeah.
and they're just made out of poplar, and they've got lighting underneath them, and now I can like put some plants and projects and things. And then over here, go that way. Those are my other shelves. This was I got those shelves out of the trash actually. I meant to go. I wanted like some more room for my house plants, and I was going to go to IKEA and buy some of these wood shelves that they sell. And I meant to go like this one weekend, and it just so happened like the day before I was going to go, I was like leaving work. Sorry, I'm adjusting my camera here. I was leaving work, and like three houses down from work, those shelves were sitting out in the trash, like the very ones I was going to go buy at IKEA.
It was
So
destiny.
yeah, so I pulled over and like ran across the street, and I was like, ah, God, what am I going to do with them? And I was like, well, I'm just going to leave them at work. So I just like was walking with this giant shelving unit like over my head, just like walking all awkwardly down the sidewalk. And like it was like 5:05, and so like all my coworkers were leaving work, and they all like were seeing me just like walking down the street with this giant shelving unit heading back towards the office. And like some of them like rolled their window down to be like, what are you doing? And like I was like, I've got trash shelves. But I took them back and like threw them behind the office until the weekend, and then I brought them home and cleaned them up and put some linseed oil on them, and like they're great. So yeah, I've been like doing some redecorating around here as some of my projects lately.
Yeah, I like this. I like what you did with the shelves on the wall. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, when you have a small space, all you can do is go up, right?
Yeah,
So
you create a bunch of horizontal space on your walls.
yeah,
It's all
yeah,
about the horizontal spaces. That's a little trick in tiny houses. I built like some little house stuff for people once. I worked on this tiny house they had shaped like a nautilus shell. It was a nightmare. Everything had the golden mean formula plugged into it to build it. It was a trip. But where was I going with this? Oh, if you have 500 square feet and you have a section maybe where you've got, let's say it's kind of a squarish area, if you were to just outline it, or a rectangle, and maybe it's your TV and your couch, something like that, you build a floor and raise it up like maybe 14 inches and put two 7-inch rise steps on it. And
yeah,
whenever you go to that place, now you've gone up, and it makes the place feel bigger because now you move in an upward dimension, and it's weird. It'll create this feeling that there's more room in the place.
yeah. You know, when I put these shelves up, like they really make the place feel larger because like they give. It used to just be a white wall.
Yeah.
Uh, but now like the shelves sort of like stretch upward. So even though I have a normal height ceiling in here, it makes the ceiling feel a lot taller to have those shelves going upward. So I really like what it did to my living room by putting those in. Like my living room feels a lot more comfortable now.
Yeah, it's nice. You got
What
to
is
get creative in tiny places. I
yeah?
like the vintage stereo is cool too, by the way.
Oh yeah, that's my
Love that.
wood. Um, this was my dad's stereo. This was his first stereo he bought when he was probably like 20 or something, and he paid a lot of money for it because my dad has always spent too much money on things. But I don't know.
Pioneer? Is it a Pioneer?
It's a Kenwood.
Kenwood. That's good stuff.
Yeah, he bought that brand new in I think 1974. And it was the stereo at my parents' house for a long time until like 10 years ago when he decided that he needed a new stereo. And he bought a new one, and he asked if I wanted this one, and I said sure. And so that's been my stereo for years. And I did a project with this recently. So you know, this era of stereos always, they kind of paired that brushed aluminum with the simulated wood grain.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I love that simulated wood grain, and the sides of it were simulated wood grain, which like is supposed to look like walnut. But over the years, they had gotten all chipped up because they're plywood with like a melamine that looks like walnut over them. It's not even like a real veneer. And so they were just banged up, and like I was like, you know, I'd really like to clean this thing up. And so I ended up buying some walnut from the local wood shop. There's a like a place, like a lumber store over here, and I bought some walnut and I made new side pieces for it. Let's see if I can get it turned here. I made
They look great.
yeah, you can't see it real great on the video, but I copied the dimensions of the wood pieces, like those fake wood pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Made ones out of walnut and put them on, and like I'm so happy with how it looks now. Like I didn't get rid of the old ones just because, you know, I don't know, maybe this thing will be an antique someday and it'll be good to have the originals.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but I'm really happy with how these wood ones look.
That was a really common way to build them for quite a while too, with the panels on the sides that way screwed on.
Yeah.
When you wanted to do full service, all you had to do was pull the panels, the top came off, usually with a couple screws in the front, one in the back, and everything you can get at from the sides, top, and the back.
Yeah, that's exactly like this. You take the side panels off, and then there's like 4 screws to take the top off and 4 screws to take the bottom off. And then you can see everything from the top, and then you flip it over, you can see everything from the bottom. You have access to everything. Right. So it's really easy to get in there.
They're beautiful inside too. You can tell it's all stuff put together by hand, you know.
Yeah.
You know, the boards are flow soldered, with the original flow solder where the whole thing went through a bath.
Yeah.
All the through hole stuff, but all other stuff, boards are stuck together by hand.
Right. My brother has Kenwood that's like a couple years earlier than this one, and he was having some problems with it, and he asked me to help him troubleshoot it, and we opened it, and I was surprised to see that a lot of it was wire wrap. Mine doesn't have any wire wrap, but his had a lot of wire wrap in there, which I thought was super cool. Like you don't see that anymore, and I was not expecting to see it inside of a stereo.
It was the quickest way to join 2 boards together, you know.
Yeah.
On an assembly line. I mean, you just take the wire, hold it over there with the wire wrap tool, give it a spin, and then solder it up. Done. Mm-hmm. And it's good and reliable, you know. It's a really good bond. A lot of surface area.
So I like your shirt. I was asking what it was, but I couldn't see it. It says I void warranties. I like that.
And my friends gave me this for my birthday, my 60th birthday. Yeah, I love it. I love wearing this in places where people get it, you know, or where they don't. It's kind of funny. Some people are like, what do you mean you void warranties?
Yeah, that's like my tattoo. I guess I got this tattoo since the last time we did one.
Yeah, I love that.
It's not backwards in the video. I can't tell. Is it? It's not. No, it's not backwards.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
So it says no user serviceable parts inside. It's a like, I don't know, if you take stuff apart enough, you start seeing these tags on the bottom or back of like everything. And it's like, you know, obviously like that's BS. Like I'm going to open it and I'm going to service the parts inside. So like, I don't know. I had an idea to get a tattoo like this for a few years, and I finally decided.
That's a good one. It's a good one.
So I got that.
Do not exceed 14.7 PSI would be good. That'd be another one. Yeah. I mean, you'll probably be okay, but it's going to hurt. So, right. Well, let's see. What else? I don't know.
Sometimes we talk about fails. Do you have any fails?
Oh, boy. Yes. At work, I have two fires. Yeah. Caught 2 cars on fire within a month. Unbelievable. It's just shit happens, you know. It's weird.
Yeah.
In the end, everything was okay. There was no permanent damage. I fixed everything, you know, but it was still just one of those, God, that could have sort of been horrible without fire extinguishers.
Right.
So that was pretty serious fail. And so now I'm being like super hyper vigilant, paranoid as shit about stuff. I'm carrying fire extinguishers around next to me when I'm doing anything with anything flammable, you know, so that's okay. Safety's good.
Right. That's a good reminder. I don't have a fire extinguisher, and I really ought to have a fire extinguisher.
Because totally worth the cost. If it works once, you're just like, it's paid for, right? So, yeah. They're like, you know, good one will cost you like $40-$45 for just a decent home one.
Right. But that's a lot cheaper than like replacing everything you own. So
yes. Yeah, exactly.
When I had my VW bus, right after I bought it, I tried to drive it home from San Luis Obispo, and the heating system caught on fire. I was on the freeway, and like it caught fire, and there was just smoke billowing out of the vents in the dashboard. I pulled over, and I had one of those dry chemical fire extinguishers, in there that came with the bus, because I guess, you know, when you have an old VW, you just keep a fire extinguisher in your car.
Yeah, always. Yeah, always with
And
Volkswagens.
yeah, and so I pulled over and I shoved the fire extinguisher like into the vents, because that's where all the smoke was coming out of, and I just like unloaded it into the vents, and it put it out. Like it shot through the whole system and put the fire out. But that powder never came out of this, like the heating ventilation system, ever again. Like
It's awful
every
stuff.
time I had it, like every time I would like freshly open the vents, like some white powder would come poofing out at me, and it's like it's gonna be in there for the rest of that van's life, you know.
It's terrible to breathe too. It's really fine, and it's
Yeah.
like an irritant as hell in your throat. It's nasty.
Yeah, when I was younger, I didn't know any better, and I found one. There was a farmhouse down the street from my parents' house that had become abandoned, and we went down in the basement. We found a bunch of stuff, like interesting stuff, and like I also found a fire extinguisher, and I just decided to spray my brother with it just for fun.
Fuck.
Like I didn't know, how often he
Right.
just got it completely all over himself and in his hair and in
Oh
his eyes and
God.
his nose, and it was such a mess.
Not to mention you just robbed his whole environment around him of oxygen temporarily. That's what that stuff does, as I understand it.
Yep.
Holy shit. Well,
Yeah.
I think that's the two major fails. I mean, yeah, a couple little bullshit ones here and there, I'm sure, along the way, and just things I've been working on. But
Yeah.
yeah, a couple oh shit moments. Still got all my fingers and toes. Everything else.
Oh,
That's
speaking
good.
of fingers and toes, I had a fail. I was using my table saw. Oh God, it was
Oh
3 weeks
yeah.
ago now. I had bought a box joint jig because I want to do some box joints, and I hadn't used the box joint jig yet. I was cutting some pieces. I was just ripping some pieces to use in the box joint jig, and like I was making 4 so I could make a box. And on the third one, I got a kickback, and I had never had a kickback from a table saw before. And like, you know, I'm just pushing the piece through, and then, you know, you always kind of know something is starting to go wrong, and like I'm pushing it through, and it starts dragging a little more than it should, and it starts to like get pulled back into the blade. It was just the very tail end of it. Like it was almost all the way through, and it starts to turn, and then like boom, like before I even know what's happened, like the piece of wood has gotten flung off the table, and it has flown across the garage. I did not lose any fingers, but the board smacked my finger really hard on the way out. And I don't know if you can see it really well. It's probably too bright, but that fingernail, that one, there you go. You can kind of see.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Ouch.
It totally mashed, like, so it ripped all of the cuticle off, and it like smashed the nail bed, and like, man, like my finger was messed up. Like I didn't cut it on the saw, thank God, but like, man, like it was in rough shape, and it hurt really badly. And that board flew across the garage and hit my shelving unit. It hit one of the pillars for the shelving unit, and it shattered the pillar. Like the pillar is like, I still have to fix the thing, and I don't know
I
quite
saw that. It's like a 2-inch diameter piece of plastic, right?
Yeah.
So just smashed it.
Yeah. So like the shelf is like supported on 3 pillars now, and there's just like a gap where the board hit. But
Like
yeah,
it didn't hit your face.
I know. I try to stand out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and so like fortunately I was doing that, and fortunately I had my hands in a good position on the fence so that they didn't get pulled into the blade. But like, man, that's scary. Like
I usually try to keep a hand on the far end that I'm cutting somewhere with some pressure down on the board on the saw.
Yeah.
And I'm leaning off, like I'm leaning off this way away from the fence, blades over there, and with the pusher stick, pushing that stick down really hard, keeping everything flat. And then, you know, that's when it rises up a bit. That's when it does it, right? So
now I'm like all paranoid about the table saw, like you're paranoid about cars catching fire, which is really good. Like I'm being extra careful with the table saw now. And I gave the saw a tune up. I cleaned all the pitch off the blade, and I waxed the blade, and I waxed the table, and like it seems to be cutting better now. But still, I'm all paranoid every time I use it. Like my adrenaline goes up a little bit every time I turn the saw on now.
yeah, that happens when they bite you.
Yeah. So yeah.
It teaches you respect for it, you know, because you just realize, yep, the thing could take my fucking hand right off.
I totally could.
Yeah.
And like even people that are experienced woodworkers, like it happens. Like I think what's his name, Jimmy DiResta. last year before, like he got a kickback and like he cut his fingers pretty badly. I think he talked about that on one of his videos. So yeah, even if you know what you're doing, like things go wrong and you have to be really careful.
I worked with a guy, I think I may have mentioned this before. I worked with a guy that was missing 2 fingers, like one here on the index and one a little further here on the next one. And I asked him how he did it, and he said on a Daydo blade. And I said, how'd you do the finger? He said a Daydo blade. And I said, both? And he goes, no, just that one. I said, oh, what happened on the other one? And he paused for a minute and he goes, that was another Daydo blade. And I said, I shook my head and I kind of laughed, and he just goes, yeah. He goes, I don't cut on Daydo blades anymore. I get somebody else to do it. I can imagine after losing 2 fingertips, you'd just be like, that's it. Nope, I'm not going to do it again.
Find a job.
Yeah, and a Daydo blade will just, if it hits your finger, it's just this noise like ching, and your finger's gone. There's nothing left of it because it's got 7 or 5 or whatever blades that just turn it into hamburger right now. Yeah, he said he didn't find it. He couldn't find it. Couldn't find the tip of the finger both times. Jesus, gruesome.
I didn't find the piece of my finger. Like it was just flesh that got ripped off, but it was like a pretty good chunk. It's in my garage somewhere. I don't know where it went. The board like went and took it and deposited it somewhere. So
it was a Jubby snack. That's gross. Oh, cats will eat you given the opportunity. There he is. Look at him, working so hard.
Yeah
Cat.
I really wish that I'm home. Like he's enjoying me being on quarantine. He's really into this. So
you'd be crazier without him.
Oh, absolutely. Like I don't know anyone to talk to here. I live by myself, and so like unless I go visit my parents, I'm not supposed to hang out with anyone else right now. So like I just got to hang out with the cat, and I'm just like talking to the cat all day, like singing stupid songs to the cat, and like being like, "Oh, what are you doing, little catty boy? Where are you been, huh?
Who's my boy?"
Yeah. Who's my boy? Oh, who's my boy? Come here, little boy.
Everybody does it. Yeah. Admit it, people that have cats and dogs. You do the crazy person voice with your animals. I have songs for every one of them. Yeah. I make up songs for all of our animals. Yeah. And speaking of, Thor just barked out there.
I started talking to the cat with a really bad Scottish accent for some reason. Just in the mornings when it's breakfast time, like when he wants his breakfast, for some reason I like talk to him with a Scottish accent. I don't know why. It's so dumb, but.
Do you want your food now? Why do you want the wet food all the time? What the heck's wrong with you?
Oh, I didn't talk about the synthesizer. I can send us off with the synthesizer.
Yeah, that thing sounds cool.
It's really noisy, so I won't run it too long. But like a real quick description. So there's an Arduino inside, and there's an accelerometer, like one of those little cheap accelerometer boards you can get for $10 or less. And the Arduino takes the X, Y, and Z readouts from the accelerometer, and it translates them into frequencies. And so this thing plays 3 different triangle waves using the Mozzie audio library. And so when you turn it on, and so the idea is like you can spin it around and shake it, but also you can set it on a flat surface and then get it rolling or spinning. And when it gets rolling or spinning, the centripetal force ends up affecting the gyroscope, and it makes a bunch of different sounds. So
pretty cool.
Yeah, I just finished this yesterday, and so I'm pretty.
Remember when I first saw it, it was before you had anything inside of it, and you did the rock back and forth thing, and I could see that it was totally just following the pattern of Foucault's pendulum because of the rotation of the Earth.
Yeah.
I suppose if it was well balanced right now, it would redo that if you did it, but it's probably not 100% balanced, so it would have a really heavy skew to it. Well, it would do it on its own center of gravity, I guess.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
What I really need is like a big
Pretty neat.
flat surface to use it on. Like it won't rock around well on carpet. You have to have like a good flat
Yeah.
hard surface. And so
Take it into the optical lab at work.
yeah, that would be a perfect place to put it. Yeah. So we'll see.
It's a brilliant idea, though. I like it a lot. If that was a product, you know how many people would buy that thing if you put it in something like about as big as a little tennis ball, and
yeah,
it'd sell like crazy. It's just like this freaking noisemaker.
totally good.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
working on
that's the kind of thing I would give to somebody's kid that, you know, I just wanted to watch them cringe because their kid was annoying the shit out of them. Boy, I've done that. Or it's like I'm giving some kid like, oh, he's gonna make so much noise in this, and the parents look at you like, thanks.
That's for your frenemies that have kids. Like when you go, I want to pretend like I'm your friend, but I don't like you. You give them
are we evil? We don't have kids, so there's that.
Yeah, that makes a difference right there.
It's true. All right. Well, cool. Anyway, I've told you on Twitter, and I'll say it again. That's a great design. It's really neat. Yeah. I'm curious. I got to ask one more question. So it takes the accelerometer data and then turns it into a frequency.
Yep.
And then there's like another code that shifts that frequency based on the input from where, like, let's say X moves this amount, and so it shifts based on where it was and where it is now, kind of a thing.
Yeah. So, you know, those accelerometers, I guess, sort of in a way, they behave. They don't behave all that differently than a potentiometer.
Right.
There's a lot of like digital stuff going on, but you know, they output a voltage on a pin, and this is an analog one I'm using. A digital one is different. It uses like I squared C or whatever, but this one has three analog outputs, and so like if you have X, you tilt the accelerometer one direction, like the output will be like, I don't know, it'll approach 0 volts, and if you tilt it the other direction in the X-axis, it'll approach 3.3 volts, which is the max that the accelerometer like runs at. And so,
okay,
you have those three outputs from the accelerometer, and they go to the three of the digital, or not digital, three of the analog input pins of the Arduino, and the Arduino sketch.
Just doing an analog read then.
Yeah, just doing an analog read.
Okay.
And, the library I'm using, which is Mozzie, it's an audio synthesis library.
I gotta play with that.
It's fun. It can do a lot of stuff. It's not the most well documented thing, and there's not like a lot of community for it anymore because it's kind of old now. But one feature it has is something called AutoMap, and so what AutoMap does is it like say you have a potentiometer, using a potentiometer to adjust the frequency, you know, the analog input, analog like read, you have 1,023 values, right? You have between 0 and 1,023. So you turn the potentiometer one way, it's 0. Turn it the other way, it's 1,023. But one thing you can do with Mozzie is you can have it auto map, and so it looks for like, where am I right now? And then if you turn it, it looks, where am I now? And it says like, okay, where I was like is the bottom, and so that's 0, and where I am now is the top, so that's 1,023. And it continually readjusts. And so what that allows you to do is like, you can, like, if you want your synthesizer to adapt to its conditions, then it will, because it will say like, well, I haven't leaned all the way over yet, and that means like I'm probably never going to lean all the way over, and so I'm just going to assume that that's not a value to look for anymore. So if I lean this far over, and like the output from digital pin, or the input coming into digital pin 3 or analog pin 3, if the lowest it goes is 200, then it'll just say like, okay, 200, you're the new 0. And so it's doing that.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. And then it just takes the value. There's some other magic going on. Like the sketch I'm using does like a rolling average. So because accelerometer data is kind of noisy, like it jumps around a lot. It's not just, it doesn't stay. Like a potentiometer kind of just stays.
Yeah.
But accelerometer, like it's jittery. And
Sure.
so if you adjust your frequency like completely with the jitter, then the frequency will bounce all over the place and it sounds kind of noisy. Another thing that the Mozzie library has is a rolling average where you can set, you can tell it like, don't take every single like piece of data like from the accelerometer right away.
So it's like sampling. It's like how much it's sampling it before it decides to make a.
Exactly. And you can set it to take 2 or 4 or 6, any power of 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, 16, 32, as many as you want. If you go too high, then it gets slow and it's not very responsive.
Right.
But I think I have it sampling 8 readings from the accelerometer for each pin. And then it takes those, averages them. And then it says like, okay, that value, that gets translated into frequency for triangle wave form 1. And then Y is triangle waveform 2, and Z is triangle waveform 3. And then it plays them all at the same time using FM synthesis. So it's sort of like simulating 3 triangle waves because it doesn't actually have 3 triangle wave generators. It simulates them through PWM, and your ear really can't tell the difference. So
now I'm going to make a miniature one with a tiny speaker on it, hanging around my dog's collar.
Yeah, you totally would.
That'd be cool. It would just be like as the dog's running around.
You know what would be fun is, so another thing that the Mozzie library can do is it can play back short audio samples. Like you can take a wave file and you convert it into a wave table, and you have to lower the resolution enough to fit it into the Arduino's memory, but you can do that. So you can get like maybe like 2-3 seconds of audio as long as you like adjust the resolution low enough.
Right.
And you can change the playback speed. So like really simple, there's already a sketch in the examples where there's a audio sample, and the idea is like if you turn a potentiometer one way, it'll slow it down. So you'd be like, hello, or you turn it the other way and it'll be like, hello, hello, hello. And so you could totally like upload an audio sample, like record your dog barking, and then like load that into the Arduino, and then have your accelerometer adjust the playback for the barks. So if the dog is running around all crazy, the barks will sound all crazy, like horribly.
That would be fun. Okay, I'm brainstorming now.
Yeah.
I got to get one of those cards and play with it. It's just a shield.
No.
It's a library. That's right. It's a library. Yeah.
All you need is an
just
Arduino.
An analog accelerometer.
Right. And
I have one of those somewhere, actually.
Great. And then I usually pair it with a small like single board amplifier, because the audio output from the digital pin is not very loud.
Yeah.
I mean, if you put it on a little speaker and you put it near your ear, you can hear it fine. You could put like headphones and listen to it, but like you're not going to hear it from a few feet away. So I always hook these when I've done a bunch of these projects, and I just send the digital pin output to a little amplifier, and then I can make it really nice.
A little LM386 or something.
Yeah.
Half watt. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can get them on Amazon or whatever.
Right. You can get I forgot the pin. I forgot what it's called now. The chip, what number it is, but it's like a little 2-amp amplifier that only needs a few extra components. A lot like just run on a 9-volt battery, but it's a bit louder.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't need much. Just a little LM386 and the right little teeny speaker thing would work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, totally do that.
Summer fun with the doggies. Okay, here we go. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up. I've got a YouTube channel you can check out, Hack a Week TV on YouTube. Haven't put a lot of stuff on there, but there's tons on there that I have put on in the past to watch. So go check it out. And there'll always be something popping up here and there. I'm going to do a how to make bread video pretty soon. The artisan bread thing I've been doing. I got a fairly reliable recipe now. I've been playing with that. I'm keeping a bread journal, which is fun. Yeah, it's cool. So anyway, if you want to check some of my stuff, Hack a Week TV. And Emily has a channel too.
I do. My channel is called Emily's Electric Oddities. I also have not been posting a lot. I think my last video was January. But I'm going to have a video on this synthesizer probably in the next couple days. So if you want to know more about the synthesizer,
Yes.
uh,
I will definitely watch that one.
cool.
All right. Well, I'm going to go void some warranties.
I think I'm going to go have some whiskey and watch TV.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, till next time.
Not hacking.
Bye.
Bye.